Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking a fascinating approach to personal development, a mental blueprint for success, built not on what you should be doing, but, and this is crucial, what you absolutely must stop doing.
Exactly.
We are diving deep into Amy Morin's groundbreaking work, 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do.
And it's such a powerful reframing, isn't it? I mean, usually we're just bombarded with instructions to add habits, meditate more, exercise more, network better.
Right. It's always more.
Morin just flips the script completely. So our mission today for you is to really identify and dissect these corrosive self-sabotaging habits, what she calls the heavyweights, that are unconsciously holding you back.
And to really get our heads around the urgency and, I guess, the realism of this philosophy, we have to start with her story. The foundation of this whole thing is rooted in just profound personal tragedy.
It absolutely is. I mean, the author's journey is the essential bedrock of this deep dive. Amy Morin, who is a licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist, she experienced these devastating losses so early in her life.
It's unbelievable.
When she was just 23, her mother died. Suddenly. A brain aneurysm. A healthy, vibrant woman just gone in an instant.
And that alone would be enough to derail anyone. But the trauma didn't stop there.
No. Just 3 years later, her husband, Lincoln, collapsed and died unexpectedly from a heart attack. He was only 26.
26.
I mean, it was just overwhelmingly sudden. She describes having to plan funeral arrangements while she was still reeling from her mother's death. And she knew intuitively that if she let herself sink into self-pity or just endless rumination, she wouldn't survive it emotionally.
So the real catalyst, the moment she synthesized all this, came even later.
Years later, yeah. After she had remarried, her father-in-law, Rob, was diagnosed with cancer and passed away. And that third unexpected death brought her right back into that cycle of grief.
And she realized something.
She realized that in fighting against the inertia of despair over those years, she had developed a real resilience, a mental toughness that a lot of her patients, and frankly most people, just lacked.
So the core insight wasn't about inventing new positive traits. It was about identifying the baggage.
Precisely. Her whole philosophy is built on this realization that focusing on what not to do, the destructive habits, was just as important, if not more important, than focusing on good ones.
Those heavy weights that you drag around.
That's the perfect description. And it brings up that analogy of self-sabotage, which is so crucial here.
The gym goer, right.
Yeah, think about the person who goes to the gym for 2 hours, does everything right, pushes themselves, and then on the way home, they rationalize eating a whole box of donuts.
They just undo all of that hard work.
Completely. They struggle to reach their fitness goals, not because they aren't working out, but because the bad habit, the donuts, is this insurmountable weight they're dragging behind them. Morin's focus is on dropping those weights.
So let's start at the beginning. Before we analyze the don'ts, we need a really precise definition. We hear resilience, mental toughness all the time. What exactly is mental strength?
Well, at its core, mental strength is the ability to regulate your emotions, manage your thoughts, and behave in a positive way, despite your circumstances.
And it's critical to understand that it's a spectrum, right? It's not a switch you flip.
It is absolutely a spectrum.
Yeah.
No one is simply mentally strong or mentally weak. We all have some degree of it, and every single person can improve.
Okay, so if it's a spectrum, what influences where we start? Is it something we learn, or are some people just born with it?
It's a classic interplay of nature and nurture, really. The sources point to 3 key factors. First, there's genetics. A biological component might predispose you to certain mood disorders, making regulation a bit harder.
Makes sense.
Then there's personality. Some people just naturally have traits like optimism that help them think more realistically from the get-go.
And the third factor, experiences. That's the nurture part.
Yes. Your life experiences, especially the early ones, they profoundly shape how you see yourself and the world. But here's the crucial takeaway for you listening. Even if you can't change your genetics or a tough childhood, you can absolutely, with time and effort, increase your mental strength.
That's so reassuring. It shifts it from being some fixed trait to a skill you can actually build. And the key to building it, as Morin defines it, is a 3-pronged approach.
That's right. You have to address the interconnected nature of thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. If you neglect one, the others are going to suffer.
So let's break those down. How do our thoughts fit in?
So thoughts is about the cognitive work, identifying those unrealistic negative thought patterns, that self-talk that holds you back,
Hmm.
and actively replacing them with rational ones. It's not just think positive, it's think realistically.
And behaviors.
Behaviors means consciously choosing to act in a positive or productive way, no matter what your emotions are telling you to do. It's about acting on your values, even when it feels uncomfortable.
Which brings us to emotions.
Right. It's about controlling your feelings so they don't control you. Your feelings become information, not tyrants.
So the goal isn't to get rid of negative emotions, but to get your emotional response and your rational brain to work together.
Precisely. Morin's snake analogy is perfect for this. She lives in Maine, where there are no poisonous snakes, but when she sees one, her heart still pounds. That's the primal emotional panic.
But the rational part of her brain knows better.
Exactly. The rational part reminds her there's zero logical reason to be afraid. So she feels the fear, that emotion is real, but she makes a conscious behavioral choice to just walk by knowing she's safe. The fear doesn't get to derail her whole day.
That's the goal right there. Making discounts when the heart and the head are in sync.
Because if you act solely on intense emotions, like anger or despair, you almost always regret it later, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on, we have to talk about the cultural baggage that comes with mental strength. There are so many misconceptions.
This is so important. First, it is not about acting tough. It's not about having a hardened exterior. It's the internal strength that matters.
And it's definitely not about suppressing your emotions.
Definitely not. That's a recipe for burnout. It's the opposite. It's developing a keen, rational awareness of your emotions and how they influence you.
There's also that idea that it means you have to treat your body like a machine.
Right. You don't have to ignore pain. Mental strength is knowing when to push and when to listen to your body. And maybe most importantly in our society, it is not about being completely self-reliant.
Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Exactly. And another big one, it's not about unrealistic positive thinking. It's about thinking realistically and rationally, being content with where you are while still working toward your potential.
And finally, that distinction between strength and health.
They are distinct. You can be physically strong even if you have diabetes. In the same way, you can build mental strength even if you struggle with depression or anxiety. It doesn't condemn you to bad habits.
So what's the payoff? Why should you, the listener, commit to this?
Well, there are three huge benefits. First, increased resilience. You just get so much better at handling life's curveballs. Second, improved life satisfaction. When you act according to your values, you naturally feel more at peace.
And the third one is very actionable. Enhanced performance.
Whether you want to be a better parent, a more productive employee, a faster athlete, whatever it is, increasing your mental strength helps you remove those internal barriers that are holding you back.
Okay, let's jump into the first destructive habit. This one is maybe the easiest to fall into when life hits you hard because it offers this immediate but, well, destructive comfort.
The author John Gardner called self-pity easily the most destructive of the non-pharmaceutical narcotics. And that's so true. It's addictive because it gives you this momentary comfort, but it completely separates you from reality and just stalls all progress.
So what are the telltale signs of this self-pity party? How can you recognize when you're slipping into it?
Well, the signs are pretty clear. Believing your problems are genuinely worse than anyone else's. Constantly complaining that things aren't fair, struggling to find anything to be grateful for, choosing to withdraw from your social life, and in the worst cases, feeling like the world is actively out to get you.
So if it's that destructive, why do we do it? What's the function of self-pity?
I mean, for one, it's a justification for inaction. If your life is just so tragic, why bother trying to fix anything? It lets you off the hook.
And it prevents you from actually processing what you're feeling.
Exactly. Healthy grief involves processing pain, anger, acceptance. Self-pity just stalls that whole process. It keeps you focused on why things should be different instead of dealing with what is.
And if you let it go on, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely. If you believe your life is pitiful, you're not going to perform at your best, which guarantees more failures, which then reinforces the belief that you're a victim. It's a vicious cycle.
Okay, so how do mentally strong people stop that cycle? How do you take conscious control?
Morin suggests a two-pronged strategy: behavioral change and cognitive reframing. For behavioral change, you have to do something active that makes it hard to feel sorry for yourself.
Like her skydiving on her deceased husband's birthday.
Right. I mean, you literally cannot feel sorry for yourself while you're jumping out of an airplane. She forced her mind out of introspection and into high-stakes reality.
And for those of us not planning a skeeve this week,
Simpler things work just as well. Volunteering, a random act of kindness, physical activity, anything that shifts your focus away from your own misfortune and towards something outside yourself.
and what about the cognitive side? Reframing the thoughts themselves.
This is all about shifting your perception. Think about those two drivers after a fender bender. One guy gets out and says, "Just my luck. Why do these things always happen to me?"
And the other guy,
The other guy gets out and says, "Wow, we're so lucky nobody got hurt. What a great day." Same event, totally different internal narrative. Mentally strong people choose the realistic, glass half full perspective.
so you have to proactively ask yourself, what's another way I could look at this?
Exactly. And the ultimate countermeasure to self-pity is gratitude. It's a massive force for mental strength. Look at Marla Runyon, the first legally blind American woman to compete in the Olympics.
Right.
She doesn't see her impairment as a disability. She sees it as the gift that gave her the drive and commitment she needed to achieve her goals.
She found the strength in the struggle.
And the research backs this up. Regular gratitude practice reduces stress, improves health. It fundamentally shifts your mind from a state of loss to a state of abundance.
The inspiration here has to be Commander Jeremiah Denton, the POW in Vietnam.
I mean, he endured years of torture and solitary confinement. And during a televised interview, he blinked the word Torture in Morse code. He focused fiercely on the one thing he could control. And when he was released, he didn't pity himself. He went on to become a senator.
Moving on to the second habit, this is all about emotional sovereignty. Giving away your power, as Dale Carnegie warned, is giving people control over your own peace of mind.
It's the ultimate emotional surrender. It means you're letting other people or just external circumstances dictate how you think, feel, and behave. You become a passenger in your own life.
What are some of the subtle, everyday warning signs that you might be handing over the steering wheel?
Well, feeling intensely offended by any and all criticism, constantly changing your goals based on what other people think, struggling to set boundaries, using powerless language like "I have to" or "he makes me feel this way."
The story of Lauren and her meddling mother-in-law, Jackie, is a perfect example of this.
What is? Lauren was suffering in silence, just convinced this monster-in-law was trying to ruin her life. Jackie would show up unannounced, undermine her parenting, just constant passive-aggressive judgment.
And Lauren's response was just to seethe internally.
Right. She vented to her husband and friends, but never actually confronted the issue or set a boundary. She was sacrificing her own peace just to keep a perceived peace.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
It often comes from a deep desire to be seen as a nice person and an inability to tolerate the discomfort that comes with setting a boundary. Lauren thought being a good wife meant she had to tolerate Jackie no matter the cost to her own sanity.
And the problems that come from this are just so corrosive.
They are. You become dependent on others to regulate your feelings. Your life becomes an emotional roller coaster. You let others define your self-worth. You never feel good enough.
And you become incredibly sensitive to criticism.
Yes. Any negative comment feels like a devastating attack because your worth is tied to external approval.
So the first step to reclaiming your power has to be figuring out who or what is draining your resources.
It's that moment of honest assessment. Lauren did this with a pie chart. She realized she was spending 5 hours a week with her mother-in-law, but an additional 5 hours a week just thinking about her, complaining about her, or worrying about her.
10 hours of her life controlled by one person, even when that person wasn't there.
And that realization was so empowering. It gave her the perspective she needed to finally set some healthy boundaries.
Another powerful strategy is reframing the language we use, getting rid of that victim language.
Oh, it's huge. If you say, "My boss makes me so mad," you're giving him the power. Mentally strong people use language that acknowledges choice. I'm choosing to go to work tomorrow because it aligns with my financial goals, not "I have to go."
And what about when criticism is unavoidable? How can we stay calm?
You need strategies to interrupt that emotional surge. Deep breaths. Excuse yourself from the situation. Go for a walk. The goal is to make sure your response is deliberate and rational, not purely emotional.
And how do you evaluate criticism without letting it shatter you?
You have to understand that one person's opinion doesn't define you. Think of Oprah Winfrey, who was fired from an early job. She used that rejection as data, not as a definition of her worth. You have to ask, is this feedback true? Why is this person giving it to me? Is it about me or is it about them?
And finally, the ultimate act of reclaiming your power: forgiveness.
Forgiveness isn't about letting the other person off the hook. It's about consciously releasing your anger and resentment because you recognize that holding on to those feelings only hurts you.
Officer Stephen McDonald, who was paralyzed by a shooter, chose to forgive his assailant.
He consciously chose to not let that violent act or the person who did it continue to control his emotional existence. And studies show the health benefits are huge. Forgiveness is about taking back control of your own emotional state.
The third habit focuses on inertia and the huge discomfort that comes with growth. Change is the only constant, but so many people cling to what's familiar, even if it's actively destroying them.
Look at Richard, the 44-year-old former football star. He was 75 pounds overweight, just diagnosed with diabetes. He knew what he needed to do, diet, exercise, but he just couldn't get himself to do it. He was stuck.
What are the signs that someone is paralyzed by this aversion to change?
Justifying bad habits by saying it's not that bad. Feeling massive anxiety about even small changes. Worrying that change might actually make things worse, and just a total lack of motivation to even start.
So why is change so hard, even when it's literally life-saving like it was for Richard?
It comes down to three big drivers: fear, avoiding discomfort, and grief. Fear of failure or the unknown paralyzes people. And Richard was avoiding discomfort. He associated weight loss with hunger and exercise with pain. He couldn't tolerate temporary discomfort for long-term gain.
In grief, that's a surprising one.
It is. It's the psychological loss of giving something up, even a bad habit, like Tiffany, the shopping addict. For her, curbing spending wasn't just about money. It was about losing the social connection and the thrill she got from shopping with friends. She was grieving the loss of the ritual.
The problem with staying stuck is so clear, you miss out on so much. But the book offers a great roadmap, the 5 stages of change.
It makes the whole daunting idea of change much more manageable. It starts with pre-contemplation, where you don't even see the need to change. Richard was there when he refused to step on a scale.
Then you move to contemplation.
Right, you're weighing the pros and cons. Then preparation, where you plan concrete steps. For Richard, that was just swapping a cookie for carrots. Tiny, manageable.
And then action and maintenance.
Action is doing the thing. And maintenance, which is where most people fail, is having a plan to stick with it despite obstacles. Richard's first attempt failed because he tried to change too much too fast.
So the key is to create a successful plan with realistic short-term goals.
Exactly. Start with a 30-day commitment. Focus on concrete, measurable behaviors. Richard scheduled his gym time like a meeting he couldn't miss.
But what about the emotional side? The guilt Richard felt about taking time away from his family to exercise.
You have to balance those emotions with rational thought. He had to rationally decide that the short-term discomfort of missing 1 hour with his family was a necessary investment for the long-term benefit of being around for them at all.
You have to tolerate the discomfort.
You do. And you have to challenge that negative self-talk, that "I can't do this" voice. The best way to do that is to start behaving like the person you want to become. Don't wait until you feel motivated. Act first.
The power of this is so clear in Mary Deming's story.
She lost both her parents to cancer, and instead of getting stuck in grief or fear, she channeled it into active, life-affirming change. She started a nonprofit, See More Pink, and has raised huge sums for cancer causes.
She didn't just accept the loss, she created a powerful new life out of it.
She completely embraced it. As Mother Teresa said, she may not have changed the world, but she cast a stone that created some pretty significant ripples.
Okay, as we move into the next set of habits, we're shifting from internal self-sabotage to how we manage external pressure, starting with the anxiety that comes from control.
This is all about the control obsession, that deep need to feel safe by trying to keep everything under your thumb. Even the truly uncontrollable things like other people's behavior or, the weather.
Maya Angelou said it perfectly. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them.
That's it, exactly.
So what are the main signs that you're wasting energy on the uncontrollable?
Wasting enormous energy wishing other people would change. Believing the outcome of a situation is entirely up to how hard you work. That superhero complex, struggling to delegate. And, being accused of being a control freak.
So why do we do it? Why try so hard to control everything?
It's mostly an anxiety management tool. We think control equals safety. We mistakenly believe that if we just try hard enough, we can force the universe to bend to our will.
Which brings us to the locus of control.
Right. It's about how you attribute the causes of things in your life. An external locus means you believe it's all about fate, luck, or destiny.
And an internal locus.
That means you believe you have complete control over your success and failure, which sounds great, but it has a huge downside. You end up blaming yourself for things you genuinely can't control, like getting sick.
So the mentally strong person finds a middle ground.
Exactly. They cultivate what's called a bilocus of control. They recognize that external factors exist, but they keep their focus fiercely on the things they can control. Their own behavior, their effort, their attitude.
James, in that tense custody battle with his ex-wife, is the perfect example of what not to do.
He was completely fixated on controlling her behavior. He demanded she stop dating, tried to influence the judge with flashy gifts for his daughter. He wasted so much time, energy, and money trying to change his ex-wife's actions.
And it just made everything worse.
It did. It increased his anxiety, damaged his finances, and it hurt his relationship with his daughter because he wasn't really present. Attempting to control everything just damages relationships.
So how do we develop that balanced sense of control?
First, you have to identify your fears. Use your fears to figure out what you can and can't control in a situation. Look at Heather von St. James, who was diagnosed with mesothelioma. She could have been paralyzed by the fear of the cancer returning, which she couldn't control.
But instead, she shifted her focus.
She focused entirely on living every day to the fullest and advocating for others, the things that were within her control. She even created Lung Leaving Day, where people write their fears on plates and smash them. It's a symbol of letting go of the uncontrollable.
And when it comes to influencing other people, the key is to do it without force.
Right. Look at Jenny, who dropped out of college. Her mother harassed her constantly, trying to force her back to school. It just destroyed their relationship. Mentally strong people listen first, share their concerns once or twice, and then focus on changing their own behavior or attitude.
And finally, just practicing acceptance.
Acceptance is a form of control. If you're stuck in traffic, you can rage and raise your blood pressure over something you can't control. Or you can accept it, turn on a podcast, and choose an attitude of patience. You can't control the event, but you can always control your reaction to it.
Terry Fox, running the Marathon of Hope, is the ultimate example of this.
I mean, he was diagnosed with cancer, had his leg amputated at 18. He couldn't control the cancer, but he could control his mission and his effort. And even though he had to stop, his focus on what he could control created a legacy worth over $600 million. This habit is a direct result of giving away your power. Lao Tzu warned, care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner. People-pleasing is just an attempt to control how others see you, and it's rooted in a deep insecurity.
What are the red flags of the people-pleasing trap?
Feeling responsible for how other people feel, being a pushover, constantly seeking praise and approval, feeling chronically overscheduled because you just can't say no. Like Megan, the mom who volunteered for everything and was constantly doing favors for everyone.
And she was just burnt out and resentful. But the fear of saying no was greater than the pain of doing it all. Why do we do that?
It's mostly fear of conflict, rejection, not being liked. People pleasers believe that if they just make everyone happy, they'll be safe and accepted. It's also often a learned behavior from childhood where keeping the peace was essential.
The big problem is that people pleasers lose sight of their own values.
Exactly. Megan's top priorities were her husband and kids, but she was devoting most of her energy to neighbors and extended family. Her actions didn't line up with her values, and that leads to burnout and resentment.
And it damages relationships because it's not authentic.
When you just agree with everyone, people sense that. They see you as a turnoff or a martyr. They lose respect for someone who doesn't have firm boundaries.
And it creates a self-worth crisis.
Your entire self-worth is based on the shifting opinions of others, so you never feel good enough.
So what's the roadmap out of this trap?
First, you have to determine who you want to please. You have to prioritize yourself and your goals. Look at Jim Buckmaster, the CEO of Craigslist. He refused to load the site with ads, despite backlash, because his core value was providing a free service. He chose his values over universal approval.
That leads to the next step. Clarify your values.
List your top 5 values: health, family, career, whatever they are. Then look at where you spend your time, money, and energy. If they don't align, your life is out of balance.
So we have to stop that automatic yes and take time to decide.
Absolutely. When someone asks for something, pause. Ask yourself 4 questions. 1, do I want to do this? 2, what will I have to give up? 3, what will I gain? 4, how will I feel afterward, proud or resentful? It shifts the decision from a reaction to a choice.
And when you do have to say no, how do you do it?
Practice using I statements. Be respectful but firm. Megan had to practice just saying, "No, I'm not able to do that right now," without a long excuse. With practice, the discomfort gets smaller and the backlash you imagine rarely happens.
The ultimate inspiration here is Mose Gingerich.
He left the Amish community, knowing it meant being completely ostracized by everyone he had ever known. He had to learn modern life from scratch, but his choice, rooted in his own values, gave him immense self-confidence because he was the only one who had to live with his choices. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Don't be too timid. All life is an experiment." Risk aversion is natural, but when it's debilitating, it stops you from reaching your full potential.
Like Dale, the shop teacher who dreamed of opening his own furniture store, but was terrified because a previous business idea had failed.
That past failure paralyzed him. The signs of this are struggling endlessly with big decisions, daydreaming without taking action, and always imagining that absolute worst-case scenario.
And the reason we avoid these risks is that our emotions just override our logic.
Our fear and anxiety just completely skew our perception of how risky something actually is. We miscalculate constantly. We choose to drive instead of fly, even though the odds of a car crash are exponentially higher. Our emotions aren't reliable.
And that fear-based decision-making just guarantees mediocrity. You don't get to be extraordinary without taking calculated risks.
The goal isn't to be reckless. It's to be a calculated risk taker.
So how do mentally strong people balance that fear with logic?
They use a rigorous risk calculation framework. This is the key tool.
Okay, this is a big one for our listeners. Let's break down that framework.
You ask 6 questions before you act. First, what are the potential costs, tangible and intangible? Second, what are the potential benefits? Third, how will this risk help me achieve my goal? If it doesn't align with your long-term objective, it's a blind gamble.
And the last 3 give you perspective.
Fourth, what are the alternatives? Fifth, what's the best case and what's the worst case scenario? And you have to really look at that worst case and make a plan to mitigate it or survive it. And sixth, the most important one, how much will this decision matter in 5 years?
Dale used that framework. He realized the worst case bankruptcy was survivable. He could mitigate the risk by starting part-time. That was the calculated, acceptable risk.
And taking that step builds confidence. You start small and grow from there. Look at Richard Branson. He called his risks strategic judgments, not blind gambles. He shows that you have to embrace the unknown to achieve extraordinary success.
The last habit for today is so insidious because dwelling on the past often disguises itself as healthy reflection. Marianne Williamson said, "We heal the past by living fully in the present."
Dwelling is rumination, mentally replaying events, wishing you could undo them. You just replay the conversation, the mistake, over and over, looking for a different outcome that can never happen.
What are the signs you're chronically stuck in history?
Frequently wishing you could press rewind, suffering from debilitating regret, constantly wondering what if. This can show up as self-punishment or, on the flip side, romanticizing the past, believing the glory days are gone forever.
So why do we get stuck in this loop?
It's driven by unresolved guilt, shame, and fear of the future. The past, even if it was painful, is familiar. The future is uncertain and terrifying. Maureen felt this herself after her husband died, trying to keep his things exactly as they were, afraid that letting go of the objects meant letting go of the memory.
The story of Gloria and her daughter shows how past guilt messes with present actions.
Gloria felt so much guilt over how she'd raised her daughter, and that guilt prevented her from seeing the present reality. Her adult daughter was living at home, not working, and treating her like a maid service.
So the past guilt was enabling destructive behavior in the present.
Exactly. The problems with dwelling are huge. You miss out on the present. It stops you from planning for the future, and it clouds your current decision-making.
And most critically, rumination doesn't solve anything.
It just breeds negative emotions. It's clinically linked to depression and anxiety. It just prevents you from appreciating the gifts of your current life.
So how do we choose to live in the present?
The first step is to focus on the present by taking action. Gloria had to stop enabling her daughter. She had to set firm, new boundaries. That behavioral action helped her move past the guilt that was holding her hostage.
You have to use the past as data, not as your destiny.
You have to extract insight, not regret, acknowledge what happened, learn the lesson, but accept you can't change it. And finally, you have to forgive yourself. That's essential for moving past shame and guilt. You have to consciously choose to celebrate your current life's gifts. Hashtag outro for.
So we've analyzed 7 of the 13 destructive habits, and the key thread connecting all of them: self-pity, giving away power, avoiding change, controlling the uncontrollable, people-pleasing, risk aversion, dwelling on the past, It's clear. They're all forms of deep self-sabotage.
And the strength of this approach is its clarity. By focusing on what not to do, it simplifies the path. If you stop trying to control your ex-wife, you suddenly have all this mental bandwidth to focus on your own effort.
Right. If you stop indulging in self-pity, you free up emotional energy that you can channel into gratitude and action. So for the listener, how do you maintain this? It's obviously not a one-time fix.
No, the sources are clear that maintaining mental strength requires constant, deliberate practice, just like physical fitness. It means regularly checking your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors against your core values.
Which ties perfectly to the book's dedication, striving to be better today than you were yesterday. It's about growth, not perfection.
It is. It's recognizing that you'll still slip up sometimes, but a strengthened mind learns to spot the pitfalls earlier and pull itself out faster.
We spent this whole deep dive on what mentally strong people don't do. But the final provocative thought we want to leave you with is about what they must be willing to tolerate to maintain that strength.
Because developing this mental strength at the end of the day requires a willingness to endure temporary discomfort. Whether it's the sting of setting a boundary, the anxiety of embracing change, or the tension of sitting with a calculated risk, mental strength demands tolerating short-term pain for the sake of long-term peace and success. That momentary discomfort is the price of true empowerment.